Taylor Swift. There's a name I never thought I'd be saying on this channel. Her music doesn't get played on Kerrang Radio or Planet Rock, so I'm unfamiliar with her work. I'm not a Swiftie, as it were. But she's been trending on social media for not the wrong reasons, but for what some people perceive to be the wrong reasons. I know very little about her. I know she's a singer. I know she's the celebrity with the largest carbon footprint. Here, those are the flights taken by her private jet for last year alone. I know she's a self-made billionaire. Actually, why is Greta not pissed about this? She's also apparently a prominent feminist and goes through boyfriends at a fair rate. So many of her songs are about relationships coming to an end. Many songs about relationships breaking down, none about how good she is at sucking cock. Taylor, sweetheart, I think we found the problem. If I had to name my 3 favourite Taylor Swift songs, I wouldn't be able to because I don't know any of them. And unless she crosses over into the world of heavy metal, I'm unlikely to listen to them anyway. But I did see her in the movie Cats, which is hands down the worst film ever made. The reviews were so terrible that I went to the cinema to watch it, and it surpassed all my expectations. Sometimes I wonder, is it merely a coincidence that COVID struck a few weeks after that movie was released? Or was it the wrath of the Almighty, smiting us for allowing such an abomination to be created? That being said, Taylor Swift was okay in the film. Comparatively, because he had the likes of Jason Derulo. Does anyone remember him? Although in that film, it's the one performance he's ever given where he doesn't just randomly shout his own name every 15 seconds. Of course, there was also James Corden. And as a general rule of thumb, if you don't want me to watch something, put that talentless fat gobshite in it. Anyway, Miss Swift has a new album out, which I think is called The Tortured Poets Society. That's how much research I've done into this. But that album has a staggering 31 songs on it. That's more than many artists' entire back catalogue, and the lyrics run to 11,000 words. That's a short book. I've never bought an album and had to take the day off work to read the inlay. But it's some of these lyrics on a song called I Hate It Here that are causing all the controversy. My friends used to play a game where we would pick a decade we wished we could live in instead of this. I'd say the 1830s, but without all the racists and getting married off for the highest bid. Thus, we can infer that a young Taylor and her friends would sit around imagining days gone by, wondering what it would have been like to have lived back then. But with the 1830s, there are added caveats. However, many people online are ignoring those parts of the lyrics and are labelling Taylor Swift as a white supremacist.
Country artists of the past, and you have the Tortured Poets department where Taylor is like, yeah, I wish I was in the 1830s. It was like 30 years before the Emancipation Proclamation, bro. Like, slavery was booming without all the racists. Like, oh.
Maybe she could have been a Quaker. We don't know. And I definitely don't know why there's an attraction to the 1830s. I'm not great on American history, but that's, 30 years before the American Civil War? I've seen Gone with the Wind. Could it just be that back then women wore very elegant dresses? Men were more chivalrous. And as someone who lives her entire life under the glare of the media spotlight, maybe that simpler type of life is attractive. Yet she mentions without all the racists and without women essentially being treated as a commodity, because although white women weren't slaves, they were essentially the property of their husbands. But even though she says without the racism, people aren't hearing that. A white woman said something, ergo it must be racist. So here we see Miss Swift being a white supremacist. You can see the hatred on her face, although in this clip, clearly, she's practicing whipping slaves on the plantation. So now, here's just one tweet to show how unhinged some people have become. If you like Taylor Swift, we have nothing in common. She's a billionaire racist who uses the word torture as a metaphor during a genocide. 31 vapid, rotted songs about a racist dude, nothing about Palestine. As we watch real torture, Nazi Barbie wants to live in the 1930s. Buy. I don't think that person understands how albums work. Writing songs takes a long time, in particular writing 30 fucking one of them. And why would she have a song about the current conflict between Israel and an Islamic terrorist group? I'm guessing it wouldn't fit in with the theme of the album, but of course she's not writing about the current thing, so she has to be racist. Taylor Swift is guilty of the crime of being a successful white woman. Because the mob love to come for those, don't they, J.K. Rowling? And imagining what life would have been like in the past is something we all do. We found out a few months ago that most men spend half their time wondering about the Roman Empire. Now, for me, I'd love to be able to go back to the late 1960s and early 70s, so I could watch Jimi Hendrix perform and see bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin in their heyday. That doesn't mean I'd endorse the Vietnam War. I'd also love to be able to revisit the 1980s, but I wouldn't stand there applauding loudly at the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And what's going to happen for children today? If a young kid says, I'd love to know what it was like in the early 2000s. The early 2000s? 2001? 9/11? Do you support Al-Qaeda, you little shit? Now, didn't Taylor Swift start off as a country singer? Love Story. I do know a song of hers. She was a country singer. Well, recently, another artist who's of the same fame and stature as Miss Swift released a country album with no controversy. The singer who can never sink because she naturally floats. Buoyancy. To me, country is the whitest genre of any genre of music. When I think of country or country and western, I'm thinking of a guy in a cowboy hat sat in the back of a pickup truck singing about how his girl left him and did him wrong. Yet I don't see any white Americans waving their arms in the air and screaming cultural appropriation. Because that only seems to apply to people with this skin colour, in particular white women. A few years ago, the British singer Adele went to the Notting Hill Carnival with her hair in braids. Now, no culture owns braids. The Vikings braided their hair, and there are styles called Dutch braids and French braids. But people were outraged and called her a racist, so she apologised. However, Beyoncé, she's been blonde for the last 20 years. So what have we learned today? Well, I think we've learned that there are some people who are determined to see racism when there is none, even when it's explicitly pointed out that it isn't racist. I'm guessing they do this so that either they can play the victim or they have an excuse just to hate someone for being successful. What a miserable way to live your life, coming from a man who spends his afternoons shouting at a mobile phone. That's the end of this video. If you've enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, because that really does help the algorithm. And as ever, thanks for watching. Taylor Swift. Oh, fuck it. Taylor Swift, oh, fuck it. I guess I would. I'm just too generous. Cat, which is... Sorry. I'm getting flashbacks of it now. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. By the end of the movie, about a third of the audience had left, and there were 2 children crying. My friends used to play a game where we would pick a... Oh, fuck. Decade. I can't read my own writing. Thus we can infer... Oh, fuck that up. I saw one post on Twitter that said that Kanye West is worth $400 million. Taylor Swift is worth $1.1 billion, so she could buy Kanye. I think you're a bit behind the times here. White people buying black people is generally discouraged these days.